गीतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् मूकं करोति लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् ॐ अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः। सञ्जय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाभीष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणं विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः। श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वात्कश्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन क्लाव्यं मास्मगमं पार्थ नायतत्त्वायुपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्तोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं सङ्ख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन इषुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हावरिसूदन गुरून् हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्षमपीह लोके हत्वार्थकामान् स्फुरूनिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान् न चैतन्विद्मा कतरन्दो करीयो यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस्तेव स्थिता प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभाव पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम् न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनुद्यात् यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणाम् अवाप्य भूमावसपत्नवृद्धं राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यम्। सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा ऋषिकेशं गुडाकेशं परन्तप न योत्स्य इति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तुष्टिं बभूवः। तमुवाच ऋषिकेश प्रहसन्निव भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः। So we'll continue with the Gita, where we left off last time, which was chapter 2. We finished verse 3. So we'll go to verse 4. But first to recapitulate the second chapter. The second chapter comes when Arjuna has given up the thought of fighting. He's seen his relatives and his friends and even his teachers, his gurus, on the other side, and knows that he is about to destroy the very fabric of society by fighting with his teachers, with his friends, with his relatives. People on both sides will be killed, and so he comes undone. And so it says in the first verse of the chapter, Tam tatha kripaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudana. So that to him who had been thus filled with pity, Tam tatha kripaya vishtam, to him who had been filled with pity, ashrupurna kulekshanam, whose eyes were filled with tears, vishidantam, who was sunk in distress. Idam vakyam uvacha madhusudana. Madhusudana, that is Krishna, the destroyer of the demon Madhu, spoke this word to Arjuna. So again, tam tatha kripaya vishtam, he who had been overcome by pity. And so as we saw last time, Arjuna thought that he was taking the path of virtue. When he saw that his kinsmen were going to be killed, he would have to fight against his own teachers, his gurus, and saw the terrible consequences, which were indeed terrible. Again, it's not that Arjuna was mistaken about the consequences. The consequences were indeed terrible. And so he thought that the higher path would be to give up the fight, and so he threw away his bow and arrow, as it said in the last verse at the end of the first chapter. He dropped his bow and arrow and sank down into the chariot and said, I won't fight. Na yotsya iti govindam. Says, I won't fight. So now Krishna is spoken of by Sanjaya as Madhusudana, as we explained last time, that is the slayer of the demon Madhu, in order to show that the strength and the power of Sri Krishna, that he is the slayer of demons and he's about to slay the doubt of Arjuna. So, as I said last time also, in the second and third verse, which I'll just mention briefly to recapitulate, these are the two verses Swami Vivekananda used to say are the very essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Not because they give the highest teaching. After this, there are many verses which give very high spiritual teaching. And there are all types of spiritual teachings given through the verse. But because this is the very foundational attitude that is conveyed in the Bhagavad Gita. So, kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupastitam anarya jushtamaswaryam akirti karmarjuna. So Arjuna, in this perilous place, whence has come to you this impurity entertained by unenlightened persons, or this confusion, which does not lead to heaven and which brings infamy? So first of all, he doesn't even mention spiritual illumination or anything. He gives very ordinary insults to Arjuna, because he sees that Arjuna is really sunk in tamas, that is, sunk in sadness, in inertia, in fear, in doubt, etc. And you know the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva being the quality of purity, clarity, luminosity. Rajas being the quality of passion and action and reaction and so forth. And tamas being the quality of destruction, doubt, darkness, sloth, etc. And so Arjuna had been speaking words of someone who was immersed in sattva. That is, that I am above fighting. I won't fight because that's the wrong thing to do. It's better to beg my food than to engage in fight. And so Sri Krishna sees that, no, actually he's involved in tamas. And so he insults his character by saying that this doesn't lead to heaven and it brings infamy, and it's not to be entertained by the wise. It's an attitude not entertained by the wise. And then he says in the third verse, Klaibhyam masma gama partha. Don't enter into this state of being neutered. It's often translated as unmanliness, and that's the best you can do in one word in English. But it doesn't really speak about unmanliness or unwomanliness. It means entering into a state of being neutered. So partha, yield not to a neutered state. It doesn't befit you. Naitatva yupapadyate. It's not befitting you, O Arjuna. Kshudram hridaya daurbalyam. This mean weak-heartedness, faint-heartedness. Tyaktva, having time. And so then we come to where Arjuna begins his response to Sri Krishna, because he's not yet ready to give up his argument. He's not yet convinced. Those of you who have read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna will recognize the same situation in the very beginning of the Kathamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, when M begins to speak to Sri Ramakrishna. And he argues with Sri Ramakrishna 3 times, and each time Ramakrishna smashes his ego. And so then finally M says this was the last time that he argued with the master. And so Arjuna also is at the stage now where he's still ready to offer arguments. And we have to appreciate the situation of Arjuna, as I tried to say all through the first chapter. If we start with the assumption that Arjuna was a weakling and he was silly and it was useless and everything, because we already know what's coming afterwards, Arjuna didn't know what was coming afterwards. The Gita had not yet been taught to him. We've all heard the Gita, many of us here, and many have heard it for their whole life, the story of it, and so we know what's going to happen. But Arjuna didn't know what was going to happen, and so he's not yet ready to give up his argument. And so it goes, Arjuna vacha katham bhishma maham sankye dronam cha madhusudana ishubhi pratiyotsyami pujarha varisudana. So Arjuna said, in response to Sri Krishna's stirring words, trying to rouse him up, Uttishta parantapa, oh stand up, you scorcher of your foes. Then Arjuna says, Katham bhishma maham sankye dronam cha madhusudana. How can I, O Krishna, how can I fight against Bhishma and Drona in battle, Sankhya in battle? Ishubhi pratiyosyami. How will I fight with arrows against Drona and Bhishma? And so he says, with arrows, meaning that here I'm not talking about entering a debate. I'm not talking about arguing with them. That even that, one should be very careful with one's guru, with a revered teacher, to argue with them. But I'm not even, but there is a way to argue with even with your guru, with a teacher, but you do it carefully. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about fighting with arrows. Ishubhi pratiyosyami. How will I take bow and arrow against my revered teachers, like Drona, Bhishma and Drona? Pujarha varisudana. Pujarha. These two who are worthy of worship. Puja. Worthy of worship. So, Arisudana. Now, Madhusudana Saraswati, in his commentary, he makes the point that there's a repetition of Madhusudana and Arisudana. One, Madhusudana means the slayer of the demon Madhu, and Arisudana means slayer of one's enemies, but they come to basically the same. So he says that's because Arjuna was in a state, it shows the state of confusion that Arjuna was in. Because he was confused, he's repeating himself. So again, as I've said before, one of the principles in the exegesis of scriptures in the Hindu tradition is that every word has its individual meaning and should be given its individual meaning. There's no repetition without a significance to the repetition itself. And so Madhusudana says here the repetition is not a complete repetition, but a repetition of the basic idea, is because Arjuna is confused. So Madhusudana, destroyer of enemies, how shall I fight with arrows in battle against Bhishma and Drona, who are worthy of adoration. So that's the quandary that Arjuna is in, part of the quandary. He's given other arguments as well. One of our American monks, who was a brahmachari, now he's a swami, but as a brahmachari he went to India several years ago, and just before I went 6 years ago. And he went to stay for a year and then get his sannyasa and then come back to America. So he has his PhD in physics. And so while he was there, he was asked to teach classes at the Vivekananda University right next to Bedar Mutt. So he was teaching classes. And he was shocked the first time he went into class when all of the students stood up. You know, what is this? He was somebody who had not, it was his first real contact with Indian culture, though he had been a Vedantin since he was a child. He was born of devotee parents, American devotee parents. And so he was around Vedanta all of his life, and he'd been a monk for 9 years by that time. And, but he had never been in India, and he, of course, went all the way through graduate school here in America, and from kindergarten to graduate school, he had never seen students stand up for the teacher. And so he was quite shocked. But of course, in India, the teacher has always been revered. Maybe less now than before with the secularization of education and so forth, but even now, that tradition is there. So even if you go to study music, if you go to study dance, if you go to study art, then you go as you're going to a guru. And so the many stories, wonderful stories of even recent times within the last century, of people who went to study with an ustad, with a great musician, and with the great humility that they would go to the teacher and beg him to bless them with instruction. And even Hindu students who would go to a Muslim ustad and convert to Islam in order to become part of the family of the teacher. Not because they disliked Hinduism or anything, but because they were so devoted to the teacher that they wanted to be a part of the very family of the guru, musical guru. And so that tradition has been there in India for thousands and thousands of years, many thousands of years. That idea that the teacher is to be worshipped. And so here Arjuna is facing a situation where he's going to fight the very people who trained him in battle. And that also was a sacred science. In India, everything was a sacred science. When many times in the past, I haven't had that opportunity here in Houston yet, but many times in the past when I have been asked to speak about Hinduism to American audiences in different places, clubs and churches and so forth, then almost always, I haven't heard it for a while, but it used to be I could always be sure that after speaking about the heights, the sublime heights of the Vedanta, when I asked for questions and answers, somebody would say, "Why do Hindus worship cows?" So my answer would always be that in India, the natural tendency is to worship everything. And that which you appreciate, that you offer special worship to. Even the guest is someone who is worshipped in the Indian home. When a guest comes to the home, the guest is worshipped. And so the cow was a symbol of wealth, a symbol of prosperity. It was the unit of wealth at one time in India. And it gave food, it gave companionship, it gave manure both for cooking and for the fields, agricultural fields and so forth. And because of the natural motherly qualities of the cow, the Hindu attitude was one of worship. And then I would say that, well, it's not different here in America with dogs. Look at what people do for their dogs. It's just that in America, people don't turn it into something religious. But it's the same thing. And one man, when I said that, he said, no, it's not at all the same, because a dog doesn't have so much meat on it. A cow has a lot of meat. If you ate a cow, you'd get a lot more meat. If you're going to reduce everything to such pragmatism, then what can you do? There's no argument against that. But that attitude of worship, and especially with the teacher, even secular teachers, what to speak of a spiritual teacher, So, again, that's the situation that Arjuna is facing, where he realizes that these are the people I'm going to fight against. And he goes on in verse 5, Guru nahatva hi mohanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke hatvartha kamanstu guru nihaiva bhujjiya bhogan rudhira pradidhan. So he says that Guru nahatva, not killing the gurus, hi mohanubhavan, who are men of great experience and great wisdom, who are great souls. Shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke. It's better, shreya. It's better to eat food which is begged. Bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke. Here in this world, it's better to take the food which I beg. That is, not as a sannyasi. He's talking about being a beggar. It's better to become a beggar. Becoming a sannyasi, then even in those times, that was a position of honor in society. But to be a beggar was never a position of honor, never a position of honor. So it's better to be a beggar and to ask on the street for my food than to kill these great souls who are my gurus. Hatvartha kamans tu guruini eva. Having killed the teachers here itself, bhunjiya bhogan rudhira pradidhan. I would be eating food which is smeared with blood. To kill my gurus, then it's to eat food after I have killed my gurus. Then it would be like eating food which is smeared with blood, the blood of my teachers. So the very thought of that is horrible. But that's what I would be doing. So it's better to live by begging. At least that food does no harm to anyone. So rather than killing the respectable elders who are verily noble-minded, mohanubhavan, it is better in this world to live even on alms, that is by begging as a common beggar in the street. By killing the respectable elders, we shall only be enjoying here the pleasures of wealth and desirable things, arthakaman, drenched in blood, rudhira pradidhan, those things which are drenched in blood. So this is, and again, this is a sincere feeling of Arjuna, that how can I kill my teachers? That I can't do. So those who have a spiritual teacher, a guru, those who have, for instance, have received initiation from a spiritual teacher or someone, then you imagine that if you found yourself in battle with your guru on the opposite side of the battlefield. That's what Arjuna is facing. You may say that, well, my Guru Maharaj is a spiritual guru, and Arjuna's were gurus in battle. But no, those also were considered sacred sciences. And so it was not different. Arjuna is facing his gurus on the other side, and those he knows that he has to kill. So then verse 6 says, Na chaitad vidma kataranno gariyo yadva jayema yadivano jayeyu yaneva hatva najiti vishamasteva sthita pramukhe dhartarashraha. Na chaitad vidma, and I don't know, O Krishna, katarat no gariyo, that which of them is better for us. I don't know, O Krishna, which is better for us, which of the two is better for us. And that's referring back to the previous verse, to kill the respected elders and eat food which is smeared with blood, or to allow myself to be killed. I don't know which is, or to beg in the streets. I don't know which is better. Yadva jayema yadivano jayeyu, or also which of the two, to conquer or to be conquered, which is better. I don't know. I don't know which is better. So here again we see the signs that Arjuna is confused. So this also is a sign that Arjuna was not in a state of sattva. In a state of sattva, the mind is clear, the mind is lucid, and the truth of a situation is revealed to the sattvic mind. So the sattvic mind, that's why someone like Holy Mother, who was made of pure sattva, there was no stain in Holy Mother's mind whatsoever, of any kind, from her childhood itself. So Sister Nivedita said of the Holy Mother that though her life was extremely restricted in ordinary terms, she met very few people in her life, she went very few places, and even the places she went on a few pilgrimages, that was extremely limited what her experiences were, and yet the Holy Mother was able to pass accurate judgment on all human situations. People would bring to her problems which she had never confronted, never even heard of before, and yet she could pass correct judgment on what was the proper response. That was because her mind was purely sattvic, a mind which could see what is what, and the proper relationship of everything to everything else. But Arjuna is showing the fact that he's in a state of deep confusion. I don't know what is best. So again, this is not to pick on Arjuna, because that's our own situation so many times in life. I don't know what is best. I don't know what to do. And when you think about the situation he was facing, it was a terrible situation. And so he's in a state of doubt, in a state of uncertainty, in a state of lack of clarity, fogginess of mind, where he doesn't really know what to do. Yane vahatva najijiva shama. Those killing whom we wouldn't even wish to live. Those killing whom we would not even wish to live. Devastita pramukhe dhartarashtra. Those Dhartarashtra and others, the people of Dhritarashtra, the descendants of Dhritarashtra, they are there, pramukhe, avastita. They are situated here in front of us. Those people by killing whom we ourselves would not wish to live, they're the ones that we're going to fight. So again, it's a serious dilemma for Arjuna, not an easy dilemma at all. So then he goes on in verse 7. Karpanya dosho bahata swabhava prichami tvam dharma sabodha chetah yachre yaksyan diskitam bruhitam me Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapandam. So karpanya dosho pahata swabhava. My swabhava, that is my nature, meaning my mind. The essence of my mind is upahata, is struck with karpanya dosha. Karpanya dosha means the fault or the flaw of being kripana. Kripana normally means, kripan means being miserly, and in Sanskrit also to be kripana means to be miserly. And so kripana dosha, karpanya dosha, the flaw of miserliness. Here, of course, it's not talking about miserliness because there's no money involved. He's not talking about, but he's talking about small-mindedness. My mind is struck with small-mindedness. Prichami tvam dharma sambhura chetaha. Tvam prichami. I ask you, O Krishna. I ask you, I who am overcome with this small miserly mind, dharma sambhura cheta, and which is confused about my dharma. My dharma. As you know, dharma has many different meanings in Sanskrit. The Buddhists use it in some ways, and even in Buddhism, dharma has different meanings. And in the Hindu tradition as well, the same word, dharma, has various meanings. And here it means about his dharma, that is, what is my path? What is that which I should do? Dharma dharyate iti dharma. That which holds the whole universe together is dharma. Dharma is that which holds the universe together. Just like the word religion, the Latin word, which has come into English and other languages which have borrowed the Latin word, religion, religare, to bind together is the meaning of religion. And so religion is that which binds together. And so similar meaning for dharma. Dharma is that which holds everything up, which supports and sustains everything. Without dharma, there's no universe. The universe falls into chaos. So the idea of morality in Hinduism is in spite of all of the Dharma Shastras and everything, there are many law books and so forth that were written over the millennia in India about what people should do and shouldn't do according to their station in life. But the basic idea of Dharma, what we have to come back to now, when the Dharma Shastras have lost their use in society, what we have to come back to now is the basic idea of morality, the foundational idea of morality in Hinduism, which is, in the Vedic tradition, which is that the universe is constructed according to a moral order. That is, if I harm something, if I go against the moral order, then that's reflected back to me as harm. That comes back to me as harm. It's on the basis of dharma that karma works. And what is the basis of dharma? Karma is based on dharma, but on what is dharma based? Dharma is based on the basic unity of the whole universe. The whole universe is one unity, the one ocean of existence, the nature of the unitary substratum of the universe, which is God, which is Brahman, which is personal God, or the impersonal Brahman or the impersonal self. Just as light, physical light in modern science, can be seen either as a wave or as a particle. It's the same light, but sometimes it reacts in some experiments as a wave, in some experiments as a particle. So reality has its personal side and its impersonal side. It's the same reality. That which appears as Brahman also appears as the self beyond all idea of personality. And so that unitary reality, which is personal and impersonal and beyond both, as Sri Ramakrishna said, is that which is the unity underlying all of the diversity here. And so that is the foundation of Dharma. Dharma holds the universe together because Dharma is the working out of unity within the diversity of the universe. And so if I go against that by harming the universe, by harming other people, by deliberately, consciously harming other beings, then I'm going against the unity, the basic unitary structure of the universe. And it's on that basis that karma is founded. And so, dharma sambudha chetaha, I'm confused about my dharma. I don't know what my dharma is, what it is that I should be doing. Yat shreya yasyan nishchitam bruhi tanme. What is best? Yat shreya, that which is best, yat shreyasyan, syat, that which is best, nishchitam bruhi. Tell me for certain. Nishchitam bruhi. Tell me for certain. Tanme, tell that to me. So what is best, tell that for certain to me. I don't now, I'm in such a state that I need to know for sure. Don't confuse me further. I'm so confused, I don't know what to do. I'm completely lost. Shishyasteham, I'm your student. I'm your disciple. Shishyasteham. Aham te shishya. I am your disciple. Shadhimam tvam prabandham. Shadhimam, instruct me, tvam prabandham, I who have taken refuge in you. So it's a plea of Arjuna's heart that I who have taken refuge in you, tell me for certain what it is that I should do, that which is best. Tell me without any doubt, because shishyasteham, I am your shishya. I am your disciple. So with my nature overpowered by the defect due to unenlightenment, with a mind bewildered about duty, dharma samudha cheta, I ask you, tell me that which is the absolute and everlasting highest goal. Yat shreya, that which is the highest goal. I am your disciple. Instruct me who have taken refuge in you. And so Arjuna at this point is desperate. He recognizes now, he's at the point where Srima M. Mahendranath Gupta was in the beginning of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, when he comes and argues with Sri Ramakrishna 3 times, and 3 times Ramakrishna crushes his ego And then he says, now I won't argue anymore. This was the first and last time that M ever argued with Sri Ramakrishna. And so Arjuna has come to that same point where he realizes, I don't know what to do. Before, at first he knew what to do. I've come here to fight, and I'm going to fight, take my chariot out, and show me the battlefield so that I can survey those who want to fight with me. These people have come to fight with me, so you take my chariot out. I want to see who these people are who dare to fight with me. So he's ready for the fight. He's ready to face them, and he asks for the chariot to go out and to see them. And then getting out there and seeing that these are his teachers, these are his kinsmen, what he knew already but hadn't really thought about deeply, hadn't felt. Again, as I explained in previous classes, he had a conceptual idea of going into the battlefield that he was going to do, but now he actually sees the real people that he's about to kill, and then he comes undone. But then he begins to speak philosophy, that this is not right, O Krishna, that's not right, this shouldn't be done, and that shouldn't be done, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that, so it's better that I do this other, and all of that. He has so many arguments to tell Sri Krishna, but by this point he's beginning to realize that I have a dharma samudha chetaha. My mind is confused about dharma, is completely confused about dharma. Yat shreyasyan nistitam bruhitam me. That which is right, that which is the best, tell me that without any doubt, O Krishna, because I am your disciple. So here we see that he has come to a point of surrender. So he goes on to say in verse 8, Nahi prapashyami mamapanudyam yatshokamutshoshanamindriyanam avapya bhuma vasapatnamriddham rajyam suranam apichadhipatyam. Nahi prapashyami, indeed I don't see. Nahi prapashyami, indeed I don't see. Mamapanudyam yatshokamutshoshanam indriyanam. I don't see that which will remove this yatchokam, this misery, this sorrow, uchoshanam, which is burning the very life out of my indriyas, my sense organs. I don't see what will remove this intense misery that I feel, which is burning my very sense organs. Avapya bhuma vasapatnam riddham rajyam suranam apichadhipatyam. Even attaining to sovereignty over the whole earth, even attaining to sovereignty over the gods, suranam apichadhipatyam. Adhipatyam, this adhipatyam, this sovereignty over suranam, over the gods themselves. So even sovereignty over the earth, that won't remove my sorrow. Even sovereignty over the gods, becoming king of the gods, because as you know in Hinduism, the minor gods, deities like Indra, Varuna, etc., those are positions, they're offices. You're not elected to them, there's no election, and so there's no campaigning also, thank God. We have quite enough campaigns already in the modern world. But those who are extraordinarily virtuous, but not enlightened, but extraordinarily virtuous in previous cycles, they are reborn as these gods. And they live for a cycle of creation, and then at the end of creation, they go on to liberation, and others take to those positions. And so it's not, Arjuna is not saying that the king of the gods, meaning the god of gods, Devadi Deva, like Shiva or Vishnu, but he means like Indra, the king of the gods, the king of these lower gods, the king of the gods who are office holders. That even that, being the highest sovereign in the whole universe, like Brahma, not what we call in Sanskrit and Sanskritic languages, Chaturmukhi Brahma, Brahma with four faces. So not Brahman, the absolute, which is beyond all of this. Brahman, none of this consideration exists, the absolute. But the deity who has four heads looking in the four directions. Brahma, the creator, who in Hinduism, the creator is not a high deity. He's the highest of the lower deities, but he's only highest of the lower deities. He's not, that's why the Shiva, Vishnu, Durga, Kali, They all have their votaries, their devotees, their worshippers. But Brahma doesn't have his, because he's only the creator of the world. That's all. That's as much as he can do, is just create the world. He can't do anything better than that. so he has no votaries. And the myth, and there are many myths about creation in Hinduism, but the one which is one of the ones which is very common, where Vishnu is lying on the cosmic waters, lying not because he's asleep, because for Vishnu, God, Ishvara, God, like in the sense that Christians and Jews and Muslims think of God, Vishnu in that sense of God, his sleep is absorption in the absolute. So Vishnu is lying on the waters, and out of his navel lotus grows, and out of the lotus blooms, and there Brahma is seated. And then Brahma seated there, he looks in four directions. So having four heads means that he sees everything. He's omniscient, and he imagines the universe into being. That's all that Brahma does. It's not a very important thing. Vishnu and Shiva, Kali, Durga, they're far higher than that. And so Arjuna is saying that even being like Brahma, or being like Indra, and being in, having a control of the world of the gods, even that is not going to remove this sorrow from me. So Arjuna has here come to the end of his argument. He's said all that's within him to say. And so like him in the Gospel, Mahendranath Gupta, who came to an end of his arguments with Sri Ramakrishna, so Arjuna has come to the end, stating his last argument. And his last argument is not an argument. It's just that I'm so confused, I don't know what to do. I have no idea what is best. And I don't know what is going to remove this intense misery that I'm feeling. And so again, it's a pitiable situation that Arjuna finds himself in. So then we come back to the narrator, Sanjaya, who's telling Dhritarashtra, the blind king, about what is going on the battlefield, or what has already transpired on the battlefield. So verse 9, Sanjaya vacha eva muktva rishikesham gudakesha parantapaha nayosya iti govindam muktva tushnim babhuvaha. So Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, eva muktva rishikesham gudakesha parantapa. Gudakesha, that is Arjuna. Gudakesha, one who has slain sleep. The one who has slain sleep is Gudakesha. So Arjuna had mastered sleep. He was a master of sleep. He could go without sleep as long as he needed to. His mind was awake. And who was Parantapa, that is the slayer of his enemies. And here Sanjaya is using it somewhat mockingly, probably sympathetically, but also to show the contrast between what Arjuna really is and what he's showing himself to be now. He's Parantapa, he who is the scorcher of his enemies, scorcher of his foes. But now this scorcher of foes has slunk down into the chariot and is unable to fight. So Gudakesha, Parantapa, the slayer of sleep, who is the destroyer of sleep, or the controller of sleep, who is the scorcher of his enemies, eva muktva rishikesham. He said that he spoke thus to Rishikesha, that is to Krishna. Krishna Rishikesha, which means the inner controller. Sri Krishna, seated within the hearts of all, is the inner controller. You see the difference, one of the differences in the evolution of spiritual thought, historical evolution of spiritual thought. In the original Ramayana, the first Ramayana that we have is Valmiki. There's never been found any mention of any Ramayana before Valmiki's time. But Valmiki himself was writing about something which had transpired long before. So the Valmiki Ramayana is very ancient, far more ancient than any of the other Ramayanas, like Adhyatma Ramayana, Vashishta Ramayana, the Kirtidas Ramayana, the Tulsi Ramayana, etc. Far, far more ancient. But even that was written about something which had happened long, long before. It was already ancient history when Valmiki was writing thousands of years ago. So in that, Valmiki writes of Rama, where Rama is primarily the embodiment of Dharma, the perfect man, the righteous man. He's recognized as an incarnation of God, but that's not developed much. The very idea of the incarnation of God has not yet developed much in Hinduism. In the Vedas, you don't find it. You first find it here. But by the time of the Mahabharata, which is later than the Ramayana, there you find that the idea of the incarnation of God is fully developed in the Mahabharata. And so here, Sri Krishna is addressed as Rishikesha, he who is the inner controller, the Antaryami, the indweller in all beings. So Krishna is, the story is told about the charioteer of Arjuna and the kingmaker and so forth, and the great statesman Krishna. But it's already recognized that that's secondarily who he is. That Krishna is really Rishikesha, he who is seated in the hearts of all. And he's Govinda, the controller of the sense organs. The controller of the sense organs. So, Eva Muktva Rishikesham Gurakesha Parandava. So here, just using his regular name, Arjuna, having spoken thus to Krishna, the Yotsya, I won't fight. The Yotsye, I won't fight. Iti Govinda Muktva Tushnim Babuva. Having said this to Krishna, he becomes quiet. The Yotsye, I won't fight. So having said that, he became quiet. And then the 10th verse, he says, Tamavacha Rishikesha Prahasandiva Bharata Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Vishidantamidam Vachaha. So Tamavacha Rishikesha. So Rishikesha, that is Krishna, the indweller of all beings, said to Arjuna, Tamavacha, Prahasandiva Bharata. O Bharata, again Sanjaya is addressing Dhritarashtra and calling him Bharata, descendant of Bharat, the sage Bharata, after whom Bharata, India is named, and after whom the Mahabharata is named. So he's addressing Dhritarashtra, O Bharata, O descendant of Bharata. Tamuvacha Rishikesha Prahasanniva. Prahasanniva, as if he's laughing. So Arjuna is in the midst of misery, saying, I don't know what to do. I'm completely confused. And facing a calamitous situation where people are about to be killed in mass. And yet Sri Krishna begins to speak to him with a smile on his face, smiling. And so that was something that Swami Vivekananda loved to point out. In fact, it would be something that one only wishes that people had cell phones at that time so they could snap pictures of him at such moments or take a video of him. Once when he was speaking to Sharat Chandra Chakravarti, his disciple from Bangladesh, what's now Bangladesh, at that time East Bengal, he's telling about Sri Krishna, or no, he was actually talking to an artist and telling him how Sri Krishna should be displayed. And so Swamiji took a pose and took as if he were holding the reins of the horses. And all of his body, Sharat Chandra reports, his whole body was the expression of intense activity. And yet on Swamiji's face was perfect calmness and a slight smile on his lips. And so Swamiji could put himself in that position, the state of Sri Krishna, where he is now. That is, on the battlefield, ready for battle, every fiber in his body ready for action, intense action, and yet with his face perfectly calm and a smile on his lips. Smile on his lips, why? Because he knew the state of Arjuna, and he knew the truth. He knew that there's nothing to fear, how silly your fear, how silly your confusion. Because Krishna was the enlightened master who knew the whole, knew reality itself. And one who knows that reality, a person who has attained to that great height, those rare souls, In every generation there are few who attain to that, and all of us aspire for it. But those who have attained to that great height, then they can laugh at the whole world. Swami Vivekananda once said, he was talking about how we have to face all of the miseries of life boldly and fearlessly. He said, a planet comes and crashes with the earth and we are all dead. That too is fun. Why should you think fun only the things that please your senses? That too is fun. A planet comes and crashes with the earth and we're all dead. That too is fun. So Swamiji could say that. Sri Krishna could say that. We someday will be able to say that. Someday we'll be able to say that too. That doesn't mean that they don't have pity for others, but they see the divine nature of everyone and see that that's the birthright of everyone, to be in that state. So why do we think that we are small? Why do we think that we are weak? Why do we think that life is going to defeat us? That life is going to snuff us out? Even death has no hold over us. Death has no hold over us whatsoever. We only think it does. We think it does, and so we tremble and we fear. But for Krishna, seeing the misery of Arjuna, he only smiles. And again, not laughing at Arjuna, like, ha ha ha, look at that, that worm cowering there in the chariot. No, he's smiling at Arjuna. He is laughing, but it's a sympathetic laugh because he knows the truth about Arjuna, and he knows the truth about everyone, and knows that there is no death. So, O descendant of Bharata, to him who is sorrowing between the two armies, Senayor Ubhayor Madhye. Senayor Ubhayor, in the midst of both Senayor, of the two armies. In the midst of the two armies, Vishidandam idam vachaha. He spoke this word, idam vachaha, spoke this word to Vishidandam, he who was sunk in sorrow, he who had sunk down in sorrow, who had collapsed in sorrow. So Sri Krishna spoke these words. And so next time we'll find out what those words are. We'll begin with verse 11 and Sri Krishna's instruction next week. And that's where Shankaracharya begins his commentary. So far Shankara has not commented on anything. He wrote an introduction to the Gita, but the introduction also is not about the first chapter and the first 10 verses of chapter 2. He begins only where Sri Krishna begins his actual teaching of his spiritual teaching in verse 11. But Madhusudana Saraswati here, he comments on every part of the Gita, thinking that the first chapter also is important and worthy of comment. And as I said, Swami Vivekananda even said that the second and third verses of the second chapter, those are the essence of the Gita. Again, not the essence of the spiritual teaching, but the foundation of everything that comes later. That heroic ability to face life as it is, to face life as it is, to face calamities when they come to us. Everyone fears calamity. Most of us, or at least many of us, go through life without ever having to face a real calamity, a terrible calamity. We go through life without having to face one. But all of us have to face small calamities. We all have to face small calamities. Numerous times in our lives. Every day we have to face multiple problems. Every day. Multiple problems every day. And occasionally we have to face small calamities. And then there are people who have to face great calamities in life also. But with a spiritual perspective, there's no calamity which will have the ability to unseat us, to make us come undone. It's that which Arjuna had lost hold of, and that is that which Sri Krishna is going to give him. That within us is the strength, within every one of us, is the strength to face whatever life throws at us, including death. How do we know that we have the strength to face death? Because everybody, without exception, before us has died, and they've faced it. Everyone has faced it. We think, oh my God, that's the worst of the calamities. Let me not die, let me not die, let me hold on to life. Eventually we'll have to face death too, and when we do, we'll face it, because everyone does. Everyone does. And so the other problems in life, those also we can face. There's nothing we can't face in life. We all have the strength to face everything. We just need to know that and to know the foundation of that idea. So now let me ask if there are any questions or comments or arguments or anything. Our usual question answers askers like Deepak and Abhoy, and not asking anything tonight. Okay, that's all right. What's that?
We have to be absorbed.
Okay, well, that's all right. Well, then let me give announcements, and then I'll give the closing prayer. So for announcements, on Thursday we'll have the usual class on the life of Sri Ramakrishna at 11 o'clock, 11 until 12 noon. Again, that peculiar time for a weekday class was given for those who no longer drive at night. But it's open to everyone. Everyone is welcome to come. But it was given at that time with a special consideration for those who can't drive at night. So 11 until 12 on Thursday, the class on the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Continuing, and on Sunday we'll have in place of the usual lecture, I will speak, but I've decided to give once a month a question and answer session. So I will leave it open to you to ask questions, and I will weave a talk out of whatever questions I get. So you can ask anything that has general that might have general interest to others. And anything that, of course, I might be able to answer. If you have questions about particle physics or something like that, then you better go to somebody else. But something that I might be able to answer, you can ask anything. So that's all. Let me start mentioning now that on the 5th of May, Swami Sarvadevanandaji is coming. He'll be here less than 24 hours. The head of the Southern California work and also the head of this center. I'm working under his authority. So Swami Sarvadevanandaji, who is in charge of this center, the Washington, D.C. Center, Ridgely Manor in New York, as well as the 5 centers in Southern California, he's in charge of all of those. He'll be coming on May 5th. There'll be a satsang May 5th, which is Saturday night, and then the next morning, Sunday morning, he'll give the talk, and then he goes on to Austin. So I'll announce that in coming meetings also, but just so that you know, since not everyone comes to everything, that he will be coming on May 5th. So let me give the closing chant. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. That infinite reality is full, perfect, and complete. This relative universe of our perception is full, perfect, and complete. From out of the fullness of that infinite reality, the fullness of this universe has come. And yet that infinite being remains ever the same. Oh, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe.